Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I came to tell somebody today that your finances are not just a matter of dollars and cents. Your finances are a matter of destiny. God never intended for his children to live burdened, broke, confused, or shackled by stress. No, he designed you to walk in wisdom, to move in purpose, and to steward what he places in your hands with divine authority. If you can hear me today, I want you to lean in, because we're not just talking about money. We're talking about mindsets. We're talking about habits. We're talking about spiritual truths that can unlock doors you've been staring at for years. The world has its systems, but God has principles, eternal, unshakable, tested through time. And when you align your life with those principles, you better get ready, because God will shift something in your understanding, your discipline, and your future. Today, I want to introduce you to 5 Christian financial principles that don't just help you survive, they help you transform. These principles can elevate your household, strengthen your faith, and free your spirit. They're not theories. They're not fantasies. They're not maybe someday dreams. They are life-changing truths that have helped believers, families, and generations walk into stability, prosperity, and peace. So open your heart, steady your mind, and prepare your spirit, because when God's wisdom touches your finances, everything in your life begins to shift. Let's walk into this together. When we talk about putting God first in our finances, we are not simply talking about giving an offering or writing a tithe check. No, it goes far deeper than that. Putting God first means arranging our entire inner life, our thoughts, our decisions, our priorities around the truth that God is our source. Not our job, not our paycheck, not our business, not the economy, not the market, God. And when God becomes the source, everything else becomes a resource. That shift alone can break years of anxiety off a person. See, too many people are living from paycheck to paycheck spiritually, leaning on their own strength, depending on their own calculation, carrying the weight of trying to make everything work by themselves. But when you put God first, you place what you have in the hands of the one who never runs out, who never dries up, who never fails. Putting God first means making a spiritual decision before you make a financial one. It means that before the bills speak, before the stress speaks, before fear speaks, you quiet yourself long enough to let God speak. And God doesn't speak from a place of crisis. He speaks from a place of abundance. He speaks from a place of peace. So when you put him first, you begin to hear a different voice guiding your money decisions. You're no longer operating out of desperation. You're operating out of divine order. But let me make this plain. Putting God first does not magically remove financial challenges. It does something more powerful. It repositions you. It changes the way you walk through those challenges. When God is first, you face financial uncertainty with confidence, because you know your stability doesn't come from what's in your wallet, but who's on the throne. Some people wait for their situation to improve before they honor God, before they pray, before they commit. But putting God first means you honor him even when you don't understand how things will work out. It's saying, Lord, I trust you with what I have, even when what I have feels small. There's something powerful about giving God the first, the best, the beginning. It's symbolic. It's spiritual. It tells heaven and tells your own soul that God is not an afterthought. He is not an accessory to your life plan. He is the foundation of the whole house. And a foundation doesn't get the leftovers, it gets the first placement. When the first is given to God, the rest becomes blessed. That's not superstition. That's not emotionalism. That's spiritual alignment. Just like a seed breaks open before it grows, your obedience breaks something open in your life before increase shows up in the natural. And hear this clearly. Putting God first is not only about giving money, it's about trust. real trust. Trust when you don't feel secure. Trust when you're afraid. Trust when life has taught you to hold tight to everything you have as if God won't provide anything else. Many people believe in God but do not trust Him in this area. They trust Him with their salvation but not with their spending. They trust Him with their eternity but not with their budget. They trust Him with their soul but not with their income. And it creates a spiritual split inside them. They are faithful in word but fearful in practice. Putting God first heals that split. It unifies your faith so that what you say, what you feel, and what you do all move in the same direction. When you put God first in your finances, it changes your mentality from ownership to stewardship. You stop saying, "This is mine," and start saying, "Lord, this is yours. I'm just managing it." That shift takes the pressure off you because you're no longer carrying the weight of trying to sustain what God has already promised to supply. When you understand stewardship, you realize you're a partner with God, not a pawn of circumstance. You realize that your financial life is part of your spiritual walk, not separate from it. Every decision becomes an act of worship. Every payment becomes an act of discipline. Every investment becomes an act of faith. And let me tell you something else. When you put God first, you begin to experience a peace that money cannot buy. Not because everything is easy, but because everything has order. Disorder drains you. Disorder confuses you. Disorder makes your money disappear and your hope go with it. But when you put God first, order enters the room. Grace enters the room. Wisdom enters the room. And when wisdom steps in, waste steps out. When order steps in, chaos packs its bags. When God steps in first, fear steps aside. Putting God first upgrades your expectations. You stop expecting financial disaster and start expecting God's provision. You stop expecting the worst and start looking for God's intervention. You begin to live with the quiet confidence that says, "I don't know how, I don't know when, but I know God will make a way." That kind of faith doesn't come from seeing the numbers, it comes from seeing God. Putting God first changes your habits. It makes you more intentional, more disciplined, more thoughtful. It gives you the strength to say no to impulse, no to comparison, no to envy, no to waste. Because when God is first, everything else must line up or step aside. So yes, when we say put God first, we're talking about a principle that can transform not only your finances, but your heart, your character, your peace, your future. It lifts the burden from your shoulders and places it in the hands of the one who can handle it. It opens doors no one can close. It invites blessings you didn't even know to pray for. And it aligns your life with the divine flow that has sustained believers for generations. When we talk about stewardship, we're talking about something deeper than management. We're talking about a spiritual posture, a mindset, a heart condition that says, "Lord, I will honor you with what's in my hands, even if it's not everything I want yet." Too many people are waiting for a breakthrough before they practice discipline, waiting for abundance before they walk in wisdom, waiting for overflow before they learn how to handle the portion they already possess. But stewardship is not about waiting for more, it's about being faithful with what is already in your grasp. Most of us think our lives would be better if we simply had more money. But the truth is, more money does not fix poor stewardship, it amplifies it. If you are wasteful with a little, you will be wasteful with a lot. If you are undisciplined with a portion, you will be overwhelmed with abundance. God doesn't promote people based on desire. He promotes based on discipline. Before God multiplies, He measures. Before He elevates, He evaluates. And He looks at how we handle what we already have, not what we hope to have in the future. Stewardship means looking at your finances honestly, without excuses, without denial, without hiding, It means confronting habits that have been robbing you for years, patterns that you inherited or absorbed, decisions you've been repeating even though they haven't served you. It takes courage to face those things. It takes maturity to say, this isn't working and I need to change. But that's where transformation begins, in honesty, in awareness, in the willingness to be taught by God rather than being driven by impulse. Stewardship means self-control, and that is not a word people like to hear. Self-control isn't glamorous. It doesn't get applause. It doesn't always feel good, but it builds the kind of foundation that can carry blessing without collapsing under it. Self-control is spiritual strength disguised as everyday choices, choosing to save instead of spend, choosing to plan instead of drift, choosing to pause instead of reacting, choosing to wait instead of rushing. These don't feel dramatic in the moment, but they become the difference between peace and pressure. A lot of people pray for deliverance from financial stress, but they don't realize that sometimes the deliverance is in discipline. It's in learning to tell your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. It's in tracking what's coming in and what's going out so you can stop leaks before they drain you dry. Stewardship is not punishment, it's empowerment. It gives you clarity. It gives you control. It gives you the ability to make choices based on purpose instead of panic. Stewardship also means letting go of the comparison trap. One of the biggest enemies of good financial decisions is the need to keep up with friends, with family, with culture, with images we see online. Comparison makes you spend money you don't have to impress people who aren't even paying attention. It pushes you into debt disguised as lifestyle. It distracts you from your real goals with someone else's highlight reel. But stewardship stays focused. It says, this is my life, my income, my responsibility, my path, and I will walk it wisely, even if it looks different from someone else's. Stewardship means valuing what you already have instead of despising it because it's not yet where you want to be. Some people can't grow because they're so busy complaining about what they lack that they never maximize what they have. But if you can learn to appreciate the small, the simple, the beginning stages, the early steps, God can breathe on it. God can stretch it. God can multiply it. He can turn your not enough into more than enough, not because the amount changed immediately, but because your mindset did. When you manage what you have with excellence, you begin to see opportunity where others see limitation. You start noticing the little places where change can begin. You start uncovering areas where you can save, where you can cut, where you can rearrange. You gain power over the things that used to control you. That's stewardship. It's not magic, it's mastery. And mastery brings momentum. Stewardship means making decisions that your future self will thank you for. It means thinking beyond today's feelings and looking into tomorrow's consequences. Mature stewardship asks, how will this decision affect my peace, my family, my stability, my goals? It's a shift from survival thinking to strategic thinking. You stop living on impulse and start living with intention. And let me tell you this, stewardship is spiritual warfare. Every time you choose discipline over disorder, heaven celebrates and hell gets nervous. Every time you say no to a destructive habit, you break a generational pattern. Every time you take responsibility instead of blaming others, you take back authority over your life. Every time you plan, every time you save, every time you make a wise choice, you reclaim territory the enemy tried to steal through chaos and confusion. Proper stewardship brings confidence, not arrogance, confidence. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to trust your decisions. You begin to trust the process because you know you're not just reacting, you're building, you're growing, you're aligning your actions with your faith. And that alignment brings a kind of progress that feels slow at first, but becomes powerful over time. When you steward well, you send a message to God that you're ready for more, not because you demanded it, but because you demonstrated it. You prove that increase won't break you. You prove that blessing won't ruin you. You prove that abundance won't turn into waste. God can bless a faithful steward because a faithful steward knows what to do with a blessing. Stewardship is not about perfection, it's about direction. It's about making small, consistent choices that form a lifestyle of wisdom. It's about managing today with excellence so tomorrow has something to build on. And when you embrace that, you unlock a flow of growth, clarity, and stability that can transform your entire financial life. When we talk about generosity, we're talking about something that goes far deeper than the wallet, deeper than the bank account, deeper than the numbers on a page. True generosity flows from the heart, not from the amount. The world measures generosity by size, but God measures generosity by spirit. You can give a large gift with a small heart, and you can give a small gift with a big heart. Heaven doesn't evaluate the dollar sign, it evaluates the devotion, the intention, the sincerity behind the act. That's why Jesus praised the widow who gave her 2 small coins. In the eyes of the world, it looked insignificant. In the eyes of God, it shook heaven. Generosity is a spiritual principle that breaks the power of greed, fear, scarcity, and self-preservation. We live in a world that constantly feeds us messages of hold on, keep for yourself, don't let go, you might run out. But God's kingdom operates on a different principle. God says, give, and it shall be given unto you. The world says, keep what you have, God says. Release what you have and watch me multiply it. And this is not about manipulation or some prosperity formula. It's about trust. Do you trust God enough to open your hand? Or has fear closed your hand so tightly that nothing can flow in and nothing can flow out? Generosity doesn't begin with money. It begins with mindset. It begins with recognizing that everything we have, our resources, our time, our strength, our opportunities, comes from God. When you know God is your provider, giving becomes easier because you're not giving from a place of loss, you're giving from a place of gratitude. Gratitude is the soil where generosity grows. When you remember how God has made ways out of no way, how He kept you when you should have fallen, how He opened doors you didn't deserve and gave you blessings you couldn't have earned, something inside you becomes willing, eager, even joyful about giving. Some people want to be generous, but they're afraid. They've been taught that resources are limited, opportunities are scarce, and if they give too much, they'll end up lacking. That mindset traps the soul. Fear creates a dam that stops the flow of blessings. But generosity breaks that dam. Generosity opens a channel where God can pour, replenish, and strengthen. You cannot outgive God. You cannot empty His supply. You cannot exhaust His ability to return what you release. God doesn't multiply greed, He multiplies generosity. But let's make something clear. Generosity is not only about money. You can give encouragement. You can give time. You can give kindness. You can give forgiveness. You can give patience when someone else doesn't deserve it. You can give grace because God gave you grace. You can give compassion because God didn't withhold compassion from you. Generosity is a posture. It's a way of living. It's choosing to pour out instead of holding back because you trust that God will refill whatever you pour. A generous person walks differently. They don't operate from scarcity, they operate from abundance, even when they don't have much. They know that generosity has a boomerang effect. What you send out has a way of coming back. When you pour into others, God uses someone else to pour into you. When you bless someone, God raises up someone to bless you, not because you earned it, but because you aligned yourself with a principle bigger than yourself. Generosity is a spiritual circulation system. When blood circulates, the body lives. When generosity circulates, the spirit thrives. One of the reasons generosity is so powerful is because it breaks the chains of selfishness. Selfishness suffocates joy. It disconnects you from people, from purpose, from community. Whatever becomes the center of your life becomes the master of your life. If money becomes your center, it becomes your master. If fear becomes your center, it becomes your master. But when love, compassion, and generosity sit at the center, they shape your decisions, soften your spirit, and open your hands to receive the fullness of God. Generosity also shifts relationships. People are drawn to a generous spirit. A generous person doesn't drain rooms, they fill them. They don't take the last word, they give encouragement. They don't walk into a space asking, "What can I get?" They walk in asking, "What can I give?" That kind of presence creates impact. Generous people leave fingerprints of kindness everywhere they go. They plant seeds in hearts that bloom long after the moment has passed. They inspire others to give, not by telling them, but by showing them. Generosity strengthens families. When children grow up seeing generosity, not entitlement, they learn the value of sacrifice, empathy, and community. They learn that life is bigger than them. They learn that giving is not losing, it's investing. It's sowing into something that will outlive them. And let me tell you this, generosity brings joy. There is a joy that money cannot buy, a joy that shopping cannot create, a joy that entertainment cannot produce, the joy of knowing you were used by God to bless someone, the joy of knowing you lightened a burden or lifted a spirit, the joy of knowing God used your hands to deliver an answer to someone else's prayer. But generosity must be intentional. It doesn't just happen because you feel inspired one day. It becomes part of your character when you make it a lifestyle. It grows when you practice it, even in small doses. Every generous act rewires your thinking, reshapes your priorities, and reminds you that you are connected to something bigger than yourself. When you give, you become a conduit, a vessel, a channel for God's goodness. You become part of the divine flow. And once you experience that flow, once you taste the joy of giving, you realize that generosity doesn't reduce you. It enlarges you. It doesn't weaken you. It strengthens you. It doesn't take from you. It transforms you. Living within your means is not just a financial strategy, it is a spiritual discipline, a declaration of trust, a form of worship that says, "Lord, I believe your timing is better than my impatience, and your plan is better than my pressure." In a world that constantly screams for more clothes, more gadgets, more status, more debt disguised as lifestyle, it takes courage, spiritual depth, and emotional maturity to say, "I will live according to what I have, not according to what I wish I had." That doesn't make you weak. That makes you wise. That means you refuse to let culture drive you, comparison define you, or impulses control you. It means you choose peace over pressure, purpose over pride, and discipline over debt. Living within your means doesn't mean living small. It means living smart. It means refusing to become a slave to bills, to creditors, to the illusion of success that social media tries to sell you. Too many people are trapped in financial bondage because they keep trying to live at a level they have not yet earned, maintain an image they cannot afford, or mirror a lifestyle that is not their assignment. They stretch themselves thin, not because they lack income, but because they lack boundaries. You cannot build a stable life on unstable spending habits. And you cannot walk in purpose if you are drowning in pressure created by decisions you didn't need to make. Living within your means is not punishment, it is protection. It protects your future from impulsive choices. It protects your emotions from the anxiety of overdue bills. It protects your peace from the stress of living for approval. Every time you choose to live within your limits, you are choosing to guard your mind, your heart, and your household. You're choosing to live with margin instead of madness. You're choosing to walk with balance instead of burdens. But here is the deeper truth. Living within your means is also an act of faith. It means you trust that God will increase you in His time, that you don't have to rush, force, or fake a lifestyle that hasn't been built on a firm foundation. Faith is not only about believing God for blessings, faith is also about having the patience to wait for them. When you choose not to overspend, not to borrow unnecessarily, not to chase what you can't afford, you're telling God, I believe you will elevate me when I'm ready. I believe you will bless me when the time is right. Until then, I will prove myself faithful with what I have. Living within your means forces you to confront what truly matters. You begin to separate wants from needs, impulses from priorities, distractions from destiny. A wise life is built on clarity, and clarity comes when you stop buying things just to satisfy temporary feelings. How many people buy things to escape stress, to numb disappointment, to fill loneliness, to impress people who barely notice? When you spend for emotional reasons instead of purposeful ones, you invite chaos into your finances. But when you slow down, breathe, think, and choose based on values, not feelings, you step into maturity. You begin to shape a life that reflects who you are becoming, not who you are trying to imitate. Living within your means also teaches you contentment. Contentment is not complacency, it's gratitude in motion. It's the ability to say, I thank God for where I am on the way to where I'm going. Contentment stabilizes you. It keeps you from chasing every trend, every must-have, every new thing that promises fulfillment but delivers emptiness. Contentment allows you to enjoy what you have while still working for what you want. It creates space for joy to grow, for peace to deepen, for blessings to multiply. And let me tell you something. Contentment is powerful because it breaks the spirit of comparison. Comparison is a thief. It steals your joy, your focus, your progress. It convinces you that what you have is not enough, that who you are is not enough. But when you decide to live within your means, you also decide to stop measuring your life by someone else's highlights. You begin to walk your own journey with confidence. You begin to honor your own timeline. You begin to build your life on authenticity, not imitation. Living within your means is also an act of stewardship. It means you respect what God has given you. You treat every dollar as a tool, not a toy. You plan, you prepare, you prioritize. You think about the future instead of only the moment. When you budget, when you track your spending, when you say no, even though you want to say yes, you are not restricting your life, you are building it. You are laying a foundation strong enough to hold the weight of future blessings. God does not bless recklessness. He blesses readiness. And readiness is built through discipline. Living within your means gives you breathing room. It gives you space to save, to invest, to give, to plan. It gives you flexibility instead of fear. Many people are stressed not because life is so hard, but because their lifestyle is too big. The bills are too big. The house is too big. The car payment is too big. The pressure is too big. And their peace is too small. When you shrink your lifestyle to match your income, you expand your peace to match your purpose. Living within your means does not mean you won't grow. In fact, it sets you up for growth. It creates the environment where blessings can take root without slipping through your fingers. When God sees that you can handle the level you're on, He prepares you for the next one. Increase doesn't start with more money, it starts with wiser management. And wise management starts with living within your means. So when you make the choice to live according to what you have, you are not being limited, you are being liberated. You're freeing your future, you're strengthening your foundation, you're positioning yourself for the kind of stability that leads to success. You're walking in wisdom, and wisdom is worship, because every disciplined decision is a way of telling God, I trust you more than I trust the pressure to impress. I trust your timing more than my urge to rush. I trust your plan more than my impulses. That is the power, the beauty, and the spiritual strength of living within your means. Planning for the future is not fear, it is faith wearing work boots. It is hope translated into strategy. It is belief expressed through preparation. Too often people separate faith and planning as if they are enemies, as if trusting God cancels the need to think ahead, save, prepare, or build. But true faith doesn't sit back and wait for blessings to fall from the sky. True faith rolls up its sleeves and starts preparing the ground because it believes the seed will grow. True faith takes action because it expects God to move. When you plan for your future, you are saying, Lord, I believe you have good things in store for me, and I will prepare myself to receive them. Planning means looking ahead with vision instead of reacting with panic. It means being intentional rather than impulsive. It means refusing to let life just happen to you. It means deciding you will take responsibility for your tomorrow instead of leaving it in the hands of chance or chaos. Some people avoid planning because it forces them to face the truth about their finances, their habits, or their direction. But you cannot conquer what you refuse to confront. Planning requires honesty. It requires reflection. It requires you to think about the long-term consequences of short-term actions. And that kind of thinking builds strength, maturity, and wisdom. Planning for the future is not about predicting every detail. It's about preparing for possibilities. It's about creating margin so that unexpected storms don't destroy you. Life will bring surprises, good ones and difficult ones, but when you have a plan, you're not shaken so easily. A savings account is not a symbol of fear, it is a symbol of wisdom. An investment is not a lack of trust, it is a declaration that you are preparing for what you believe God will bring into your life. A budget is not a cage, it is a compass. Planning is not restricting, it is empowering. One of the biggest lies people believe is, I'll start when I have more. But planning is not for the wealthy. Planning is what leads to stability. You plan with what you have, not with what you hope you'll have. You start with the small, the simple, the manageable. Just like a seed doesn't start as a tree, financial stability doesn't start with abundance, it starts with structure. A little saved with discipline becomes much over time. A little invested consistently becomes a harvest. A little planned wisely becomes a foundation that can support dreams, goals, and opportunities. Planning for the future also teaches patience. You learn to resist the temptation of instant gratification. You learn to say, not now, so you can say, thank God I waited, later. Planning makes you think beyond the urge of the moment. It keeps you aligned with your goals instead of being pulled apart by every desire, impulse, or distraction. When you plan, you train your emotions to take a back seat so your purpose can take the wheel. But planning is not only financial, it is also spiritual and emotional. Planning means preparing your heart for what God is calling you to become. It means building character, developing skills, cultivating discipline, and learning wisdom. When God blesses you, the blessing shouldn't break you. Planning strengthens the vessel so it can hold what God wants to pour into it. An unprepared blessing can feel like a burden, but when you have planned, you have the structure to carry it. Planning for the future is an act of stewardship. It means you are taking responsibility for your destiny instead of leaving it to chance. It means you value what God has given you enough to manage it wisely. When you plan, you're not trying to control everything. You're partnering with God, creating space for Him to move. You're saying, Lord, I'm preparing the soil. You send the rain. Planning doesn't replace God, it invites God. Planning also protects you from becoming a prisoner of urgency. When everything is last minute, everything becomes an emergency. But when you plan, emergencies lose their power. You have a cushion. You have a strategy. You have a roadmap. You make decisions from clarity, not from chaos. And clarity is one of the greatest gifts you can give your future self. Planning for the future is a gift to your family as well. It means you don't leave them with burdens, confusion, or financial messes. It means you teach them discipline by your example. It means you leave a legacy of wisdom, not just memories. A good plan doesn't just lift you, it lifts generations. Planning builds inheritance. Planning creates security. Planning opens doors for those who come after you. Planning also changes your mindset from survival to vision. Survivors think about today, builders think about tomorrow. Survivors react, builders prepare. Survivors hope luck will change, builders take steps so their life will change. When you plan, you shift from being controlled by circumstances to shaping your circumstances. That shift is powerful. That shift is transformative. That shift is the difference between drifting through life and directing your life. And let's talk about the spiritual confidence planning brings. When you plan, you can pray with clarity. You don't just say, Lord, bless me. You say, Lord, bless this plan. Guide this step, strengthen this decision, open this door. Planning gives your prayer structure. It gives your faith an assignment. It gives your hope a blueprint. It turns vague dreams into actionable steps. It turns desires into direction. Planning for your future is not about controlling outcomes. It's about preparing for opportunities. It's about being ready when God says, now is the time. Too many people miss their blessing because they weren't prepared to receive it. God can open a door, but if you haven't planned, you might not be ready to walk through it. Planning ensures that when opportunity knocks, you don't hesitate, you don't fear, you don't scramble, you step boldly. Planning is faith in motion. Faith that believes tomorrow can be better. Faith that trusts God will guide your steps. Faith that says, I may not know what the future holds, but I will prepare for it because I trust the one who holds it. That is the power, the strength, and the spiritual maturity of planning for the future.